All right, thanks, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So Scott mentioned we're going to be talking about how GIS applications can be used to improve your operational readiness to help you have a smart installation. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to start off by just talking about how we can have this idea of a smart installation, which helps us improve operational readiness and helps us have shared understanding of all the operations on an installation. So every agency has facilities and installations they need to manage. A well-run installation effectively leverages technology and data to serve tenant organizations. So we refer to this as a smart installation. A smart installation improves operational readiness by providing shared understanding of all operations and provides enhanced security and services. Smart installations are more responsive to the needs of tenant organizations and higher headquarters. So when we talk about a smart installation, we're really talking about effectively managing your installation. There's many different challenges that we see across government installations. The first, of course, is complying with government regulations and directives. These regulations and directives often require different departments to work together to comply and to ensure that they're in alignment with these directives. They also have challenges like modernizing to be more energy efficient and be more resilient in case of disasters. They need to be able to respond to emergencies. They need to have transparency and accountability at all levels of command and to their tenant organizations. And in order to do that effectively, they need to be able to collaborate across departments and across levels of command. So what is a smart installation? So smart installations happen in many different scales. In general, we think of large government installations that are much like kind of small cities. But I think it's easy to think about them in terms of what does a smart installation look like? So smart installation is one that's preparing for the future in a number of different ways. They're managing their assets in real time. They're coordinating projects across departments. They're able to respond to security threats and communicate warnings. They're able to plan for and respond to emergencies. So we use that term smart installations as an umbrella term. Under that heading, there are sub-themes such as sustainable installations, safe installations, resilient installations, smart facilities, and so on. So the goal is really about delivering improved services and making the installation a place that functions efficiently and contributes to overall readiness. So government facility managers, military installation commanders, and campus administrators use location information to make better decisions. Their facilities are smart, highly instrumented, connected, and digitally equipped. A smart installation capitalizes on location to improve workflows by connecting all the installation data to a place on the ground. They're able to leverage new technologies like the Internet of Things to check and improve efficiency, such as smart lighting. And it makes seeing the big picture easier and intuitive by showing assets and project status via dashboards and maps. So we think about that smart installation, we touch many different parts and maybe different departments where many of you might come from, whether you're in the security or you're looking at ways to better manage your assets, or maybe you're a tenant command who relies on an installation's infrastructure to make it possible to accomplish your mission. And the smart installation benefits all of these different groups and departments by providing a single environment for collaboration and data sharing. Smart installations are forward-leaning, so they look for ways technology can help them work smarter instead of harder. We believe that ESRI has tools that can help you make your installation a smart installation. And to start with, we're going to actually launch right into a demonstration of a modern way of thinking about master planning. So instead of thinking about master planning as a document that sits on the shelf, think about your master plan as a living document that everybody can have access to, that's always up to date, and that you can actually interact with and query in order to understand what's happening. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who's going to actually take us through an example of just such a master plan.
All right, thanks, Ben. So what we're looking at here is an example of ArcGIS Enterprise portal. And what I'm going to do is open up the installation development plan for that portal. I like this example because it deals with comprehensive planning, planning process that evaluates a whole spectrum of issues: environmental, land use, operations, engineering, transportation, safety, the list goes on. This application, what we're doing is we're using a story map, a configurable application that comes with the ArcGIS Enterprise package, and it allows us to create a narrative along the lines of my installation development plan or my master plan. And with it, walking through my narrative, I'm able to add on the main stage videos, images, websites, applications, whatever I need to tell that story. So as you see, as I walk down into installation setting, I'm automatically pulling up a map of the installation. It's a live map, and I'm able to zoom in, do all the things that you would do with a regular map. I continue on with my story, and as I get to different areas where I want to highlight something, like Hurricane Andrew on Homestead Air Force Base, I can link to images that kind of enrich the narrative that I'm talking about. So as we move through, I can continue on and look at the former installation area. So not only look at the current installation area as it stands right now, I can look at the former area and the parcels that were divided up and either leased or disposed of. I can continue on into planning constraints. I can start talking about the constraints of my installation, and I can link to live maps that are continually being updated and maintained by the various components. So comprehensive planning pulls in a lot of different component plans, encroachment action plans, architectural compatibility, installation compatible use zone studies, and we can use that information to go and once again enrich the narrative and get a look at the installation. So I also can, beyond using my maps and images, I can start pulling in applications. I'm going to scroll down to installation capacity opportunities. So I can start looking into some of the investment planning, the activity management plans, and I'm linking directly to a web application that talks about, from an airfield and transportation networks perspective, my projects and the base commander's priorities on those projects, what are funded, what are unfunded requirements, and I also can get a look at status. And we're going to go into this dashboard a little bit later, but I wanted to emphasize those dashboards or applications or reporting that you're doing on your enterprise platform. You're able to share and collaborate and use those in other products. Another example of an application may be looking at, we get into future land use and land use development, taking looks at my area development plans. I have some narrative here. I can show an image of some future construction or some planning. I can also look into my area development plans through an application that kind of consolidates those for me and puts them in a format that I can easily go and pick the area development plan and look at projects associated to that area development plan, and then also be able to drill into those specific projects, where they're at on the installation, get some additional information, and I also can go look at media, some artist renderings and drawings associated with that particular project. And I can continue to do that across my projects for that area development plan. So that's all I have for installation development plans today. The key takeaway is this is an end product that you would be able to develop, utilize across the installation by pulling together a lot of disparate resources of other organizations that may be using the platform to generate specific artifacts for their particular areas. So back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jim. I think it's pretty interesting. That's a pretty sharp difference from what I'd say the typical master planning type documents look like. Right, we're used to seeing those as notebooks that essentially go out of date the minute you finish them, and they sit on the shelf, for a year, and then come back to be updated in kind of an annual process. So instead, we see this as a living plan. And as Jim mentioned, it's being assembled from a bunch of different elements, which are actually being maintained by different parts of the installation. So they could actually use those elements in different ways to work together. So why do we see ESRI as having a role in this? Well, we see this as being the power of kind of applying GIS and location. So everything on an installation happens at a location, it happens at a place, and it happens at a time. So really the only way to integrate the installation picture is to use location. It's the way you can look at all these different disparate activities in one place. People can intuitively understand what's happening on a map. They can understand and communicate with each other using maps and those kind of dynamic information products. And we can have context about what's happening around us. We can understand the context of a maintenance project and how it might interfere with maybe required training. So these projects and these activities on installations, how they impact our readiness and what we can do to maybe minimize the disruption, or what we can do to maybe work together to better plan our activities so that we have very little downtime, or potentially even improve and enhance the services on an installation. So, you know, time and space helps us do that. It helps us coordinate these things and helps us understand them together. And a big part of this is about, you know, applying technology. You know, that a lot of the installations and facilities that we see are trying to do that. They're trying to bring in new technologies, new kinds of sensors. They want to be open in their data. They want to share it with the stakeholders for their installation. They want to leverage mobile technologies, whether that's bring your own device or even, you know, just devices for specific workers on the installation, or even bring in engineering components using mobile computing. Leveraging the power of the cloud, so you're not having to host as much infrastructure yourself. You're leveraging the cost and benefits of cloud computing. And then as we have these sensors and new sources of data, of course, connecting to big data systems that make it possible to understand the actual raw data about our sensors and activities on an installation. So we have high fidelity, round the clock capabilities. So when we talk about that, you know, what we're really looking at is how we can engage our entire installation. So I like to think of this in a couple of different circles. So the first circle I think about is this inner circle, which is that blue inner circle, which is the different components on an installation that need to work together to make the installation run effectively. That might be people doing the master planning, creating that interactive planning product. It might be the security and emergency services organizations who are making sure the installation is safe and responding to events as they occur, or planning for special activities in the future. It might be people managing individual facilities on the installation. It could be the engineering group or utilities group who need to understand where maintenance is occurring or where future development needs to happen, where are our current assets. And all of those need to work together in a way where they can collaborate on projects horizontally. And then they need to engage with everybody who leverages the installation. That might be staff who work in those departments who need to be able to access data on devices. That may be contractors who you want to be able to have provide data for the installation, but also who would leverage the data to do the work that they need to do. That definitely includes tenant organizations. So the organizations who rely on the installation for their operational readiness, whether that's understanding the location availability of labs or training areas, or maybe understanding maintenance projects that might impact their ability to do their operations that they might need to plan around. That's the workers who are part of the installation, but it's also about being transparent with higher headquarters. So rather than treating higher headquarters as something you kind of feed occasionally with reports and status, actually using this information system to just have live view of your installation. So transparency up and down from the installation all the way to the headquarters. So what enables that? What's the center of that? Well, we're going to take a look at that now. We're actually take a look at kind of this collaboration system, which we refer to as the ArcGIS Enterprise portal, which lets everybody in the installation collaborate and share products together in real time. And it lets them build information products and also keep the information about the installation up to date. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who's going to show us the portal and how that feeds into the installation picture.
All right, so as I started off last time, this is an example of what the enterprise portal looks like, kind of some standard overview here. I can determine, you know, with my portal what I want my users to see when they first come to the page, what I'm highlighting in a features area that I can move through. We did look at the installation development plan. I have some basic tools up here for me to create a new map, create a 3D scene, and groups. And we're going to get back to groups in a second. I also have, as you notice, an identity. So the main feature of the portal, beyond providing content to your general users, is to create an identity where you can have users that can belong to groups. And when I look at some of my groups that I have here on this installation example. So base operations, common operations picture, base operations editing. So if I stick in the operations area, what I'm able to do is take those users with an identity and associate them to those groups. As you see, right now, these two groups are locked down, so only very specific users can work with those. But my base operations group is available to everyone. So what that means is then I can go back to my home page and I can create a way for the organization itself, those that can have access to your enterprise platform, can come in and see organizational content. And I have it divided up generically into plans and programs, emergency management. As you see here, there's that base operation shared with everyone. And I also created a way for people to look at the installation services. So the installation GIS group will publish standard services in the combination installation picture, or they may have some other services as well. We can go in and look at those standard services. So they are features on the map that you can use to build a map. So starting with the most basic the most basic part of a map would be just buildings and roads, bridges, airfield surface. I can go through those, and if I need that information, it's searchable, and we'll get to that in a moment. I can start with a blank map and add my services, or I can start with a template map that is created for me. So we have a couple that we saw in the installation development plan, constraints map, water and flood zones map. So I can take these, and I have an application base map. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So when I open up my my base map, this is the interface for creating a new map. Since I'm an administrator, I can save this back. If it was a general user, the only thing they would be able to do is save as. So save as their own map in their own content area, and then if they have privileges, share that with others. So I mentioned those services that were created as standard services for the installation. I'm able to search those, so I can go and look for, let's say, projects, and find a projects feature in my search content, quickly add it to the map, and then I can go with my projects and change the symbol however I would like. I could save that. I can also do some work with pop-ups. I want my pop-ups when I click on a project to provide different information or change the field alias. So I can go ahead and customize this map. Once I do that, I'll end up in my it'll end up in my content area. To give you a quick view of my content area, and I'll just use my IMCOM map as an example. When I first create it, it's not shared. I can then go and give access to whatever groups I belong to. I belong to a lot, but I may want to share it with the organization, or I may want to share it to, you know, a specific group like base operations. Go back to the home, and that gives you kind of an example of how content is organized, users and groups. And you know, once you have several different departments in on your installation adding content, you're able to move through those groups and see what's available to you and what those groups are sharing. It gives you the opportunity to join other groups, and once you have access to that content, create your own maps and share those. And like we saw with the installation development plan, bring them into specific configured, pre-configured applications to quickly share them as an application. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So I think that's, great example of how, we use this portal essentially as the central hub of all the information for our installation. So it's about, the authoritative data for the installation. It's about giving people access and the ability to create their own information products. So bringing together that authoritative information in different ways. And then as Jim showed, you can use that as a collaboration mechanism. So whether it's departmental collaboration or things you want to create to share across your entire installation, you can do both, leveraging the portal. So what's different? What's changed? Why are we talking about a smart installation now, and as opposed to a few years ago? I think there's a couple key kind of trends that have changed, and along the lines of Internet of Things. And there's just two specific things that I really think applies to installations. One is people have become sensors. People have devices. They're able to collect and share information in real time, and they've essentially become sensors that we can leverage to know what's going on an installation, and they're people we need to communicate with. And then secondly, buildings have become data. So we've been able to take buildings and information about facilities, infrastructure, and things like that. And those are just data elements that we can now integrate together. And we can do a lot, that we couldn't do before. You think about your house at home. If you look on your phone, you can have apps that let you control your heating and air conditioning. If you want to, mess with your family while you're away on travel, you could turn the heat up or down. Or if you just practically wanted to control, your energy usage, you could at least keep an eye on it using your phone. You can see who's ringing your doorbell or watch for that Amazon delivery. And all of that happens through your phone and through connected devices. And really, it's consumer technology has just driven us to a place where we can do so much and have so much real-time awareness. Well, we want to apply that same concept to a facility or an installation. Of course, that's more complex than just, putting some smart devices in your home. But the ideas are similar. What we see as an approach to this is that there's many different projects and many different concepts and ideas you want to apply to your installation. What you can do is you can follow a pattern where you have the same pattern of implementation. So one implementation might be, hey, we want to manage our buildings and facility data. So you integrate that into your GIS, you provide out building and facility data information products, and everybody can leverage that in a common platform. And then you might have a project where you want to be able to give people just location and routing data. They want to be able to move from one part of the installation to another, from one conference room to another, from their parking space to the building, and you want to just give them the simple apps to do that. So that might be another project you implement, but again, you're implementing that on the common platform. So these different approaches all use the same technical platform, but they integrate different kinds of data and they create different information products. So it's something you build on, rather than what we see often is these kind of stovepipe projects where people do very specific projects, but they do them on stovepipe information systems and then they can't integrate the data together for new purposes. And all of this information can be brought together and presented in a variety of different ways when you do this approach, when you bring all the data in and integrate it into a single platform. So what we're going to do now is actually look at some examples of that, of integrating this data together and then having some information products that can be used by operational users and also decision makers to understand status information, understand where we are in a plan, many different things that we can do in simple reporting dashboards. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jim again, and he's going to walk us through that.
All right, as we were walking through the installation development plan, we took a look at one of the types of reporting tools that we have, the AMP activity management plan for airfields transportation. So let's go and take a look at the facilities version of that. This is a web app builder tool. So as we talked about before, as you make your maps and add content to the map, you can use a WYSIWYG web app builder to create an application like you're looking at right now. This deals with key priorities for the base, and it's looking at current funded projects, unfunded requirements, and I can look at those in two different ways, from a project cost perspective and a project count perspective. So if I lose the project there, I can look at the different statuses that my projects are in, and it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but as I move across these, I get a halo around some of those projects. So what's in design, construction, what has just been awarded, and I can do that across a couple different views. I can look at it from a fiscal year perspective, hover over that 222. From a project cost perspective, $10 million work that year. Project counts 4. Now these are dealing with the funded and unfunded. I can look at it from a program type, O&M, Milcon projects, and NAF. I can also take a look in my development planning. So what do I have in the next 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10, and then my my long range planning as well. And I can look at them from a area development plan perspective as well. What projects are in those area development plans. I can look at the types of work, how many are doing repair, new construction, improvements, demolition, and adds as well. So I have those various ways to look at the data. I can also go and look at the commander's priorities in a different way, and I can look at top priority. There's 2 top priorities, and one is, take a look at this one. It takes me to where that project's at. I can get some additional information on it. If there are any attachments, I would see them at the bottom, so I can go and do that. We have a demolition of this old deployment building. So it gives us a way to walk around my investment plan for facilities, and I could do some reporting here as well, but a good, quick, visual way to look around my installation, know what's going on from that investment perspective. So let's take a look at another reporting tool as well. And open this up. This is the actual artifact as it stands in Portal. So I'm going to open this up. It's a dashboard. And what it lets me do is it's going to load up my facilities, and they're color coded according to conditions. So I can go and select on a facility, get information about that facility. I can then start drilling into the facility and looking at some of my builder information, facility condition index, mission dependency index, risk of that facility. I also can look at built cost, replacement cost, and a cost summary across maintenance and repairs. And then we can go into my square footage, gross square footage, net usable, and so on. So once again, another quick dashboard to do reporting and find out information. This one about my facilities and their condition. And once again, you saw me click a different facility. I can go back and look at it as well, and touch on one more and go back and see what I'm looking at, headquarters group. And once again, I can go and look at those conditions. So let's jump all the way back to my plans and programs. And we already looked at the area development plan viewer. I wanted to go back into airfields and transportation. Once again, another investment planning tool, kind of looking at those projects for my pavements. So we set up the same as facilities, but one other thing that we have here is pavement conditions. So I can also tie in information to this as well. You'll notice that set to 0. I'm going to turn on my conditions, pavement conditions layer, and now I start to get a look at all of my pavements and the condition of those different pavements, as you can see, and where we're doing when we're doing projects as well. The same can be done with your facility conditions on the same page. So back to you, Ben.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks, Jim. So that quite a few examples of different dashboards and really showing how we're connecting operational information, decision-making, support. So helping, as Jim was saying, helping understand investments, where money's being spent, what's the current status of projects, what's the planned view. So you can see these different kind of reporting dashboards can take many different forms. I think the key thing about it is they're taking a lot of data. So you're building the data in your GIS, you're sharing that data with all the decision makers. We're taking all that data and we're presenting it in meaningful views where we can actually do these decision-making views, but they're data-driven. They're not, this isn't manual report-driven, this is data-driven. And you basically design these reports, and these reports are living documents that people can look at any time. And when they need to make the decisions, as opposed to waiting for some kind of annual update cycle or things like that. So with that idea in mind, we're going to talk a little bit more about, okay, how do you actually become a smart installation? So, you see all these great information products. You want to be just like Jim, and you want to see if you can make some of these things in your organization. So I'm going to go through, I'd say, slightly oversimplified, but to help kind of understand the steps required to become this smart installation. We basically have it boiled down into 4 steps. So the first one, we'd say use a world-class GIS platform, like ESRI. Well, what we really mean there is that leverage a platform that can actually integrate all of your information together, which we see as our GIS platform. Most of you, if you're U.S. government, federal installation, military installation, you actually already have access to this. So you actually already done step 1, which is having this world-class GIS platform. What we often find is that some people are getting stuck at step 2, which I think is actually the most important, which is building a location strategy. So location strategy is all about determining what are the key information products you want to produce, what's the key data that goes into those information products, and how are you going to build a strategy for implementing those? So you can't build this whole system at once. You have to build it a piece at a time. And you do that by prioritizing the information products and the operational users who are going to use those information products, so you can actually build out a valid product and plan that'll let you implement over time using projects. And the third part of that then is delivering the real solution. So once you've defined those information products and you've defined what it is you're going to deliver as part of your location strategy, you start to deliver these solutions, which are going to be specific apps like the ones you just saw Jim show. So specific reporting dashboards, specific collection apps. You're going to deliver those in very focused ways so that users actually have access to them, rather than waiting for years developing a system and then never delivering capability. And then finally, we definitely recommend developing strong partnerships. In this space, installation management GIS space, we have a lot of partners of ESRI that we can recommend who do these kind of projects all the time. They have a lot of implementation expertise. And depending on the kind of information you're going to integrate, they might be experts at integrating specific business systems or implementing solutions for specific workflows. So we have a whole group of partners that we use within that space, and they go from small businesses to large businesses. They can help you do those implementations. But you can also partner with other organizations around you. So you can find these kind of consistent solutions by partnering with these other organizations, or coming to our federal GIS conference or user conference, where you can meet with like-minded individuals, find common solutions, and share and reuse those. What you're really going for is this idea of being more productive. So being able to produce more useful products, do more with less in terms of staff, by being more efficient in not building static products, but building living products, which people can use in a self-service way. You improve your transparency, so up and down your levels of command, and also to your tenant organizations. And then generally you work together in a collaborative manner with your departments on your installation. So kind of bringing these concepts together, I think it really works well to think about this in a specific use case. And I like this one because every installation has events and activities they need to plan for. Doing that requires collaboration across departments, and it also requires a strong foundation of information. And so what we're going to do is go through a vignette that Jim's going to share with how you would use this GIS platform to plan for a special event or activity. So once again, I'll turn it back over to Jim.
All right, thanks, Ben. So what we're looking at here, I'm using the story map again. Once again, it is a it's a custom app, a configurable application available on the enterprise. And what it allows me to do is, like we talked about with the installation development plan, is pull in several different types of content to, walk through a narrative or walk through a story. So in this instance, what I did, instead of bouncing back and forth between applications, is I just pulled in all the applications that we're going to look at and talk about into one interface. So let's first talk about event planning. So some of the solutions that ESRI provides on our website, solutions.esri.com, is what you will find are pre-configured applications that you just need to add your data to or instantiate in your portal and then begin using them. So the event planning application, what we did is started with a common event for airfields, doing an air show plan. So there's very many agencies involved in that planning that starts well over a year ahead of time to get things together, and they need to be able to work across different organizations to bring together that plan. So this tool helps those individuals sketch out where we're going to place different aspects of our air show, and it allows me to go and look at my templates and look at event areas, and I can go and identify gaming areas, bus loading, towaway zones, staging areas, so on. And you can see I've already went and added areas to the map, and I've begun to look at where our aircraft are going to be, and we can also go ahead right now and start adding a few more assets. I think we need another ATM, right here for these folks, and drop that on the map and fill out my form. And I'm not going to add a lot of information to this, but as you can see, as you do this, you can start setting up location descriptions, setup times, tear down times, and the current status of it. And we're going to go ahead and save that. And I have that there. What's nice about this is once you have things placed where you want, and you have different organizations coming in and as a group and organizing where things are going to sit, what needs to be added, and what that allows you to do is then generate reports. So you noticed how that had a teardown time or a startup time. You can get yourself a report that has all of your startup times, teardown times. So that's where we start with this plan for the event itself. But we also need to start looking at, from a safety and security perspective, some pre-incident planning. So another application on the solutions website at ESRI is a application called Fire Pre-Incident Planning. So it can be used by fire and EMS to look at that same map. And as you can see, as I'm adding things, they're showing up on my map. I've already started looking at doing some pre-incident planning around my facilities that are close to where this air show is going to take place. So I've identified fire connectors. I'm showing where my hydrants are at, where my electrical shutoffs are at, water shutoffs, key entry points, hazards that you'll see here, width hazard and a height hazard going under here for certain vehicles. I can look at and identify where we have hazardous materials. I can identify areas that no longer are accessible, areas where my fire engines can't turn around. I can go do all of this from a pre-planning perspective to know when something happens, if an incident happens, where my assets are going to be, and what is the condition of the environment around me. As you can see here, I've identified fire lanes, and on this side as well, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, but I'm going to continue building out my plan with kind of the same method that you just saw with event planning. And you can add whatever you'd like to the map. I'm using some kind of out of the box stuff, but your event planning assets and routes and planning areas can be organized however you like. So let's take a look into pre-incident planning. Notice I'm showing some security planning tools because I want to be able to share resource assignments and planning areas with the security folks. So I can continue going and assessing the areas. I can also go ahead and do some resource assignments, and I will pre-stage some vehicles on the map. And once again, I can the resource, start date, end time, I can collect all that information as well. Start adding some, and I'm already seeing security setting up some pre-positioned vehicles. And we can go once again, and I can do the same for, let's see, my ground ambulance, stage that here as well. And you notice that I'm putting a planning ID in. Doesn't really affect what I'm doing now, but you can do this in such a way that you can create various plans and save them and be able to pull up that plan anytime you like, or you can create exercise plans as well. So so that you can do some pre-planning as far as response goes. So now that I've worked through some of the fire and EMS planning, let's take a look at what security is doing. And they have a similar application. So with it, I can start, and let's notice that I'm seeing those pre-positioned resources from the fire folks. I'm already starting to see my road closures and the beginnings of a barrier plan and security checkpoints, as well as where my my command will be sitting, starting to put in some lighting as well for the plan. And it works similar to our last tool that we looked at. And notice as I go through and I add these, others are able to see what they need to see as security goes through and does their planning. So let's go ahead and add a couple more generic barriers over here. And I'll do one more so we can see some things come together. I'll do this barrier with emergency access as well. So we'll add that barrier. So what this allows me to do is go through and continue with my security planning. And I wanted to give a look before we move on at the integration of that. So now I can start pulling a map together where I'm highlighting specific security areas that I'll zoom into, the air terminal area, and I'll zoom out a little bit so I can hear that imagery. My air terminal zone, my control tower zone. I can start to see where everything is kind of being pulled together on this map. And once again, like I said, from a security perspective or fire perspective, or from an event planning perspective, they have different views, but they're working on the same surface. So what can we do with that? So let's go and take a look at this little tabletop planner. Once again, another app. This one, as you notice, is going to allow us to do a few different things here. So once I've created a plan, and I'm not looking at the same map now, I'm looking at an exercise map, is I can start doing some planning associated with an exercise on how we are going to react to different events. We have different tools that can be utilized, like a bomb threat tool, and we'll just use pipe bomb, and we're gonna drop it over here, and we're gonna execute that. What it's gonna do is give me a buffer, and that pipe bomb set up to be, if we look in here, there's a mandatory evacuation distance, and then we have shelter in place zones. So with that placed on the map, you could then go and open up my editor and look at how we would plan on responding to that type of event. So you have a couple different tools in there to look at doing that type of planning. Let me get rid of all of that, clear it all out. We also can look at it from a chemical spill perspective, and I'm using a service here that I need to log into real quick, and we can look at a spill and say we had a spill over in this area, and it's a chemical spill, and we'll go with chlorine, but you have many different things that you could choose from, all the way down to VX and so on. We can look at we'll do a large spill, and we want to go ahead and reach out and look for the current wind as it stands right now in Florida in this location. And I've picked that up, blowing it 180 degrees, and I'm going to solve, and it's going to give me a hasty look at that large chlorine spill, and I still get those areas of exclusion, direction of the wind, and impact area. And once again, I can get a list of facilities that are directly impacted. Both of these tools can be customized to give you more information as far as facilities go, and options for which facility should shelter in place immediately, which facility should evacuate. But it gives you a tool to go ahead then and plan for the future. So hopefully that gave you a kind of a quick tour of using the platform by different organizations from a security and safety perspective around events. And I think that's all I have right now, Ben. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, so that's great, Jim. So exactly that. He showed an example of something that would be a cross-department, collaboration between many different groups. So of course, the various folks involved in security, which is itself cross-departmental, but you also see how he was using the authoritative installation maps and authoritative data to build that picture. So everything that you're planning around, as opposed to using an out-of-date paper map drawn on somebody's wall. This is something that's live and interactive and people can use. And you also see how actually bringing it together in that kind of story map actually let you look at the different pieces of it in different tabs, and that gives you different information products all brought together into one place. So you saw quite a few different things actually happening in that one workflow. And I guess finally, from a standards perspective, you saw some standard layers that you'd use for your security plan with standard symbology, some specific tools based on the ERG, the emergency response guide that showing how that chemical spill would happen and how you'd actually plan for evacuation on that. So all those standards that you need to follow were actually just embedded inside the tools and inside the workflows. So now, you can think about other solutions like that. So we've definitely talked a lot about special event planning, but we also, have solutions around workplace planning. So looking at interior space management, looking at planning new installations, doing predictive maintenance, looking at how you would place and leverage sensors, dealing with security from an interior space perspective, dealing with things like evacuation planning for buildings, large buildings and campuses. So all of those could be specific solutions that you would implement inside your organization. So the space management one, I think, is a good example. So if you wanted to get up and running quickly with something for your facility, it might be this. It might be, we want to have a quick, space optimization and related workplace kind of implementation. I want my building floor plans, I want my space usage, my space planning, and my utilization dashboard. And that'd be a quick solution that we at ESRI could do for you, or we could help you get jump started on quickly. We could help you get jump started real quickly on an asset management solution. These are all things you could do for yourself, or if you want our help or help from our partners, just let us know and we can get you in contact with our team to help you plan that. But you see there's a lot of different solutions you could apply for your installation. And what I'd encourage you to do is do that location strategy assessment. Figure out which solutions are right for your installation, which ones are a priority for your mission, and then tackle those priority mission areas. And those could be a lot of different challenges for your installation. They could be managing your facilities and assets. They could be managing operations. It could be about integrating IoT devices. Maybe you're doing a major update on your infrastructure and the installation. You're doing new smart lighting, or you're going to do work with other kinds of devices or integrate OSI soft sensors. That could be something that might drive some innovation and some new information products. Maybe you just need to do collaborative planning. You're having a challenge of cross-departmental collaboration. You need to develop a collaborative plan for some milestone, or you just need shared situational awareness. So those might be the challenges you're trying to respond to. You can implement the GIS system to help respond to those challenges and then deliver those specific solutions, those specific information products and applications to decision makers or to staff on the installation. So any of those are possible, and we encourage you to explore that more. Just so you know, we're going to continue this installation series this year and also into next year. And we're going to go into more depth on some of these specific solutions. We're going to dive more into managing facilities and assets. We're going to talk a lot more about managing operations, especially around safety and security operations. And how do you, integrate your police and fire, and how do you integrate them into your operations? So that'll be a continuing focus as we move forward. This was our chance to kind of take a step back, look at installations overall, talk about how GIS supports that, and we're going to start to dive into some of the specific mission areas. So if you need more information on any of those now, just drop us a line at the end of the session. At this point, if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask them in the box to your right. If you just want to type in a question, we can respond to it. We're happy to start taking those now until the end of the session. So with that, Scott, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have one. Can I use the system to share secure data that can't be shared with the public?
Yes, it's a great question. So we basically have two ways that we see people implementing a GIS platform. One is leveraging our ArcGIS Online platform, which is a completely cloud-hosted solution. It's secure. You can have private information stored in the cloud that you share with other people in your organization. But for many defense organizations or other kind of sensitive facility type data, typically people stand up what we call the portal for ArcGIS Enterprise inside their own environment. So that might be your own, like a DoD cloud environment. It might be your own bare iron kind of hardware servers in your environment. In those cases, then you can put that data behind your own firewall and behind your own network security. And that's often what people are doing, is they're standing up their own systems in those networks. So you can have a hybrid approach where you do some things on the internet and use ArcGIS Online, and you could do some of that work using ArcGIS Enterprise and using the portal for that sharing of information and collaboration. Okay, looking. Is there any other questions? If not, we can just wrap up.
No, I don't see any. Please remember to to answer the survey questions at the end to help us improve the quality of these. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.